Diagnosed at age 9 with a learning disability, our next guest beat the odds to become not only an award-winning drum virtuoso, but also to work alongside some of the legends of the music business. Now the New Jersey musician is using his passion and talent to help those facing similar obstacles he fought so hard to overcome. Joining me now is New Jersey musician Pat Gesualdo with his very inspirational story. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
Take me back to when you were 9 years old and you were first diagnosed with, and how it impacted you as a child to be diagnosed with that.
Well, you know, it was a pretty difficult struggle, especially starting at 9 years old. You know, I had problems in school reading and things like that, which is typical of dyslexia. And I had a severe battle with dyslexia, but it was so bad that they originally thought I had cerebral palsy. And I also had a problem with my feet, so I had to have braces on my legs. And but at the same time, I always wanted to play the drums. So I had a lot of hard work in wanting to become a drummer too, you know, as well as with my schoolwork.
So you say always. So how old were you when you realized you wanted to be a drummer?
9 years old, actually, right around the same time.
Okay. So living with a disability and all the obstacles, what sorts of obstacles did you have to face?
Well, you know, you not only necessarily had the stigma of having a disability in special education, but I also had...
So that means special ed classes?
Oh, yeah, entirely special ed. So, of course, going to different classes than some of my friends would, who were mainstream kids. I also had the problems with coordination, and, of course, you know, my schoolwork.
But you went from there to being an award-winning musician. I mean, now let me just read the list of acts. We played with bands like Kiss, Deep Purple, among others. How did you get from there to there?
Well, yeah, I've worked with a lot of members of different bands and a lot of major record company projects. But it was a lot of work, you know. From the time I was 9 years old, I played the drums, you know, 3 to 5 hours every day to be able to develop my coordination. And of course, my desire for wanting to be a drummer, you know, always followed me through that.
And you not only helped yourself, you were able to help others, too. You actually started something called DAD. Tell us what it stands for and how it helps others.
Yeah, it's called the DAD program, Drums and Disabilities, which I launched four and a half years ago. And Mayor Bloomberg and his administration helped me launch the program in the New York City school system to work with children with not only dyslexia but autism, ADD, Tourette syndrome, Asperger's, and various disabilities to develop retention, coordination, and physical and cognitive functioning through drumming.
Now, of course, you're going to actually do a demonstration for us later in the show, but tell us about the book so far and just the kind of impact it really has had.
Well, the program itself, right now we're up at the point where we have drum therapists throughout the world. We're able to offer drum therapy in several countries such as Bosnia, New Zealand, London, Slovenia, South Africa, Liberia, amongst others. And of course throughout the United States, where I train psychologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, behavioral therapists in the program so that they can then do drum therapy within their own private practice in schools, hospitals, and community centers and have an outreach to the special needs population, both children and adults.
Now, you brought these pads so that you can actually give us a demonstration?
Yes, we could do it. So one of the first things we would do, I would show you how to hold the drumsticks.
Okay.
So you take them just like this. Okay.
Gotcha. So far, so good.
Yeah, so far, so good. And basically, the purpose of bringing the drum pads into the schools to work with the kids is to develop coordination and retention. So, for example, one of the first things I would do is I would play a rhythm, and then they would play it back to me. So if I went like this, then you would do the same thing. Exactly.
Something like that. I think I played along the rim.
That's pretty good. That's okay, though.
But that's basically what you do.
Yeah.
And how does that help?
Well, drum therapy is a research study that I did with a professor from Rutgers University, showing how the repeated exposure to the rhythms and patterns of drumming, much like I did myself as a kid, helps to develop retention, coordination, and physical and cognitive functioning. So a lot of drum therapy was started by some of the things I started doing myself at 9 years old. You know, one of the things I should say is that I also had a very hard time with drum lessons because, you know, drum teachers had no idea what dyslexia was, you know, back in the 70s and 80s, and so it was very, very difficult.
Now, do they often get it confused with autism? Is there a big difference between autism and dyslexia?
Oh, huge, yeah. Yeah, dyslexia is more of a disability where you would read backwards, invert numbers and letters and objects. And autism is more along the spectrum where there's difficulty in the low-functioning kids, especially where they can't talk at all.
Now, of course, you have clinics. Do you often see yourself in the eyes of some of the children there?
Oh, it's amazing when I do the clinics and I look back and I see the kids, and I think that's why I can identify with them, you know, so much, because I know that struggle and how hard it is.
Now, you've gotten support from some pretty big names and so forth. The WWE, for instance, has been very supportive.
Yeah, the WWE has been wonderful. We were part of Raw, the New York Giants, the New Jersey Nets.
Even presidents?
Yeah, I was invited to the White House to meet President Bush to talk about how I can bring the program into the VA hospitals to help wounded troops who might have to assimilate to prosthetic devices.
And you're going to actually take us over to the drum sets?
Yes.
And what's going to happen there?
Well, I'm going to show you what it was like when I first started playing the drums and where I am now with all that hard work and how it got me there.
Oh, that should be great. We're going to do that more when we come back. So you've got to stay tuned. Look forward to that.
Coming up on The King of Queens, Doug's ready to become a baby daddy.
I want to start a family.
Well, good luck with that, because this kitchen's closed.
But Carrie doesn't think a kid should be raising a kid.
Hey, I need to borrow your baby.
Will this loner baby prove that Doug's fit to be a dad?
First, I test it on the wrist to make sure it's the right temperature. Chin!
Catch the laughs on The King of Queens.
Monday at 7 on My 9.
On the next House of Pain.
Today is the best day of your life, man. By the end of the week, me and the kids are moving out. Moving out? Yeah, we living in our deluxe apartment in the sky.
All CJ wanted was a home of his
The
own.
kids are gonna be so surprised when I pick them up from school and take them to our new place.
Yes, they will.
But what he gets is the shock of his life.
No! The only thing missing in here is the yellow tape and the chalk outline.
Tyler Perry's House of Pain.
Monday at 6 on My 9.
Welcome back. We're joined again by award-winning drummer and educator Pat Gesualdo to demonstrate just how drum therapy works. Now, there's sort of a before and after in terms of just how it has helped you, isn't there?
Yes, not only with myself, but a lot of people that have disabilities have a problem with coordination. Give you a little example of that. This is kind of what it sounded like before I started drum therapy.
Like
and before,
by age 9?
By age 9, yeah, exactly. This is what it was like for me. So I would go something like, to try to play a basic beat would be something like this. Might be. And of course, having had a severe battle with dyslexia, you know, usually drumming pattern is foot, hand, foot, hand. But because sometimes, you know, you read patterns and backwards and things backwards, that would also come over visually. So for example, I might hit the snare drum first instead of the bass drum. So it might sound something like this.
Anyone can tell that there's probably just no coordination there at all then.
Exactly.
So when you're working with people at the clinics, do you see that same sort of pattern emerging?
Oh,
and you see
absolutely.
the growth that comes afterwards?
Yes. And now I'm able to do this. Play a basic.
What a difference.
That was a lot of work to do that. You know, just to be able to go this fast, just to give you an example, usually somebody might be able to go about this speed without a disability. That alone took me at least a year to be able to play that fast, to be able to coordinate my right and my left and at a consistent and steady tempo. But now, I was able to go this, and then even after more practice and years and years and years, I was able to go faster.
I want to hear a lot more of this in just a second. For more information about topics on today's show, though, log on to my9tv.com and click on Public Affairs. That's all for today's show. For all of us here at My9, I'm Brenda Blackman, and thank you for joining us here on Real Talk. We want to hear more from you.